It took me years to figure this out, but today I'm going to give you the Pilates tax breakdown I wish someone had given me. When I first started teaching Pilates, I had absolutely no idea how taxes work. Should I be a sole trader? Do I have to keep all the receipts? And what even is a tax code? And literally no one in the Pilates world is talking about this stuff. I just genuinely thought it was one of those awkward topics that you're not meant to talk about. But the truth is, instructors just don't know where to start. And this isn't because people are irresponsible, it's just that the information isn't out there. So I have literally spent hours of my life trailing through all of the HMRC tax and all the guidance, reading government pages, cross-checking different sources, and trying to make all that kind of confusing stuff something that actually makes sense for our industry. And I know it can seem like quite a dry topic, but we're going to try and make it a little bit wet. That's not a good word. We're going to try and make it not dry. I actually do find it weirdly fascinating when you get down into it. It's kind of like a little puzzle or a code to figure out. Yeah, I'm aware it's literally called a tax code. Maybe I'm slightly ASD coded. I don't know. So in this video, we're going to cover the absolute basics that I wish someone had told me when I first started. At what point do you actually need to declare your income as a Pilates instructor? How it works if you've got a full-time job on the side, or the other way around, to be fair, is the real difference between being a sole trader and a limited company in 2026. What you really do and don't need to keep receipts for. And we're going to actually go through exactly how I do it on Excel. So I'll share my screen with you so you can see how I do it, and I will link down the spreadsheet so that you can use it yourself if you want. And if you are using accounting software like QuickBooks, Free Agent, or Xero, you can apply the same principles. You'll have to click a couple of different buttons, but it's the same concept. Just before we get going, I do want to caveat, I am not a financial advisor. This is just what I've learned through my own experience, a lot of digging, a lot of research, plus what HMRC says on their website and in their guidelines, and what's kept me organized with my taxes. You will find the timestamps scattered throughout, so if you want to skip straight ahead to one of the parts of the video, please do feel free to do that. We're going to get started on chapter 1. Do I need to declare my Pilates income? So the answer to this one is probably yes. Unless you are teaching a sporadic class here or there and you're not working, then you do need to declare your income. There is something called a trading allowance, which is £1,000 of income. In that case, you do not have to declare it. For most of us, it is going to be more than that. Do the maths. So let's put in 35, as that's the starting rate for your Pilates class, times 52. You're already at £2,000. So even if you're teaching 1 hour of class a week, then you're going to be over that £1,000. If you are doing Pilates as your side income and you've got a PAYE job or like an employment job where the tax is taken off for you, then you still need to declare it if your income combined over the year is over £1,000. The only people this might not apply to are, for example, students. Maybe you're teaching for free or cheap or on donation base, and that gross income overall isn't over £1,000. So step 2, you're obviously going to have to register to declare your income. So we're first going to cover if you're employed and doing Pilates as your side income. So you're getting tax automatically deducted off your payslip. You probably see this whenever you get your payslip through your employer, that money is taken off for tax. And then you've also got the side income that you're earning where the tax isn't being taken off. This means we need to now register for a self-assessment with HMRC. So once you're registered for your self-assessment, HMRC is going to do the maths for you. So after you've registered for your self-assessment, you're going to submit your income and your expenses, and HMRC will either send you a bill or a refund in terms of tax once you've submitted your self-assessment. If you're unsure of how to register your expenses and your income, we're going to cover that a little bit later in the Excel sheet. So one thing I do want to alert you of here is, depending on your income, be careful that you don't exceed the threshold without knowing. What do I mean by the threshold? So there are several different tax brackets based on different incomes. This means that how much gets taken off your income will depend on how much you earn. And this is gross income. So this means your employment plus your self-employment on the side. So if you're earning, for example, £40,000 at your job and then earning £12,000 from Pilates, this is actually going to push you up into a higher tax bracket. And the jump is quite big here. It's from 20% if you're under £50,000, okay, technically 50,270. It's 20% if you're underneath that threshold. The second you go over, everything you earn above £50,000 is going to be taxed at 40%. So the £50,000 is safe. That's absolutely fine. But above that, you're going to start getting taxed 40%. So for every £100 you earn, £40 is going to be taken from you for tax. So when accepting extra work or when accepting extra classes, if you're kind of on the cusp here, be mindful of how that's going to get affected. And the current thresholds as of December 2025, which is where we are right now, I'm just going to put in a little box over here, or maybe over here, or maybe both. As you can see, the first £12,000 don't get taxed, so they're yours. That's for you to do whatever you want with. Hopefully do something sensible with it. So the first £12,500, as you can do whatever you want with that. But then everything between 12,000 and 50,270 is at a 20% rate. So you're actually being taxed 20% of £38,000 if you're at £50,000. I hope we're making sense so far. I'm telling you, it's not as bad as you think. Okay, it kind of is sometimes, sorry. If you're in Scotland, just be mindful there are slightly different bands, but it works the same. So dialing back, say we are at a full-time job earning £40,000. You need to be mindful of how much you're earning over that £50,000 threshold. You will still get to keep some of the income. It's just challenging yourself if it's worth the time and investment into. Okay, and the next part we're going to move on to is sole trader versus a limited company. When you first start teaching Pilates, you're going to have to register either as a sole trader or as a limited company. I registered as a sole trader just because I had no idea what I was doing, and it is far, far simpler. There are benefits as you start to earn more money to becoming a limited company, as well as you're not as liable for certain things. But that's going to be another topic to go into. If you're unsure what you're doing, I would say sole trader is far simpler tax-wise. So that's the one we're going to dive into a little bit today. So the main difference we need to understand between sole trader and limited company is that when you're a sole trader, you are the business. As a limited company, the business is kind of like this conceptual being that lives in the digital finance world. What that means is that a sole trader, all the profit is directly assumed to be your income. Whereas as a limited company, it's in the business account and you can withdraw an income from that. And whatever is left of the profits, you can withdraw as dividends. And dividends, you can think of it as extra income because it's your profits above the salary you're paying yourself, because there are taxes on dividends. And I did a little bit of maths for us here. As a Pilates instructor, to make it profitable to be a limited company, you'd need to be earning about £90,000 for it to make sense for you. This is not including expenses. This is just assuming that every penny you earn is registered as income. So it would be a little bit more complicated for that than that. What I've done is I am a sole trader, and as soon as it starts to make more sense for me to move over to a limited company, I will make that transition myself. So I've run the numbers on sole trader versus limited company if you are a full-time self-employed Pilates instructor. So as you can see, as a sole trader, assuming you withdraw everything from your business, i.e. you've got no expenses, you don't leave anything in your limited company account and so on and so forth, up until the 80K mark, you are still going to have more take-home income than as a limited company. So when would you consider switching to a limited company? It's quite personal. It's up to you. There's several different scenarios where you might want to or not, and it's not just solely income-based. But if it were income-based, say you hit 90 to 100K of profits, or you plan to reinvest or leave the profits into not spending them on your house and so on. The other reasons would be if you want to pay into a director pension, split income with a partner, keep some profits in the company for reinvestment or slow months. Now, we're not going to go into all of that because, as I said, if you are just overwhelmed by admin, sole trader is going to be the easier place to start, and then you can always switch over to a limited company as and when you need. My assumption, if you're going full-time, is you're not on 90 to 100K of profits anyway. Now, when you're working at your place of employment, there are expenses, and these don't count in the profits. For example, if we had to start a lemonade stand, we would calculate the cost of all the resources, so all the lemons, and we would factor that into our overall price. So say all the ingredients cost us £1, we make 10 lemonades, and then we sell them each for £10. We've made £9 of profits. But that £1 for the original resources, we understand that we deduct that. When you are a sole trader or a limited company, there are expenses to running your business. These are things like education, sometimes equipment, and so on and so forth. So when you're declaring your income, you have to include the costs it took you to run your business. And some of these will surprise you. I will make a separate video in the future going into big details, but some simple ones we can deduct are travel, so our commute to a studio, if it is less than 40% of our work time, all of your CPDs, so any education that you attend, and any softwares that we use, which can be, for example, your accounting software, but it can also be things like Spotify, which in our industry are imperative. You are expected to have it to play in your classes. The easiest way to categorize this is, could I pay for this if it weren't for my job? If the answer is yes, then you probably can't expense it. But otherwise, probably you can expense it. If you are unsure, if in doubt, contact an accountant, get it checked, look it up on HMRC, or even ChatGPT. Like, that's made it so much easier now. A lot of Pilates instructors I know, they are doing more than just Pilates. I've got like a friend who sells jewelry. A lot of you guys are like dancers or actors or whatever. How do we separate all of this? As a sole trader, you're going to stay as one business, as one person, as a sole trader. But then on your self-assessment, you can list each separate one as a separate trade. HMRC will add up the profit and figure it out for you, how much you owe. The same goes for VAT. Again, my assumption is if you're starting out, you're not going to need to pay VAT because that's £87,000 of turnover. And my assumption is if you're starting out, you're not getting £87,000 of turnover. Okay, so we are a sole trader and we're going to start registering our business expenses. Now, I've got this spreadsheet. I've just input a little bit of data in it so that we can go through it together. And you'll see that we've got the different types of clients we've got. So studio clients would be the studios themselves. This is your third space, your one rebel. This is your level out if you're on a self-employed contract. And then you've got your private clients. So should you decide to go to people's houses or have them at your house and give them private one-on-one sessions, this is this income. And then other, so if you've got other income streams, then that's where you're going to put it. So we've got all of that down here. So each month you can either do it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever works best for you. It depends how much you're sort of spending in little pieces, how many transactions you're making. If you're making a lot, then probably you want to do it every week. If you're not making as many, you can probably get away with doing it each month. And then we've got a couple of different examples here. So the category, you're going to refer back to one of these ones here. So whatever you've got in this category column, you need to have a category over in your business accounts. The only one, the exception is if you've got something that's solely personal, like say for example here, I've got groceries as personal. I've never had a business grocery expense, so I've not got a column for that. Just remember to, if you've got any business expenses, to put them in your business accounts. Good. And then, yeah, in or out. So we put whether it's going in or out of the bank. So it's an income or an expenditure. You don't have to categorize it as business or personal. It's just literally, are you having money coming into your account or out of it? On the softwares, it will categorize a lot for you. Literally the only part you're going to have to do on the softwares is this one here, but I like to keep track this way, as I have mentioned. All right, so I've got all of that information input here, blah, blah, blah. And then if I go over to my business account, so what have we got? If we add it up manually, can get a little calculator up here. Look, there's all my baby how do we spell calculator? So we can see manually, we're only gonna be concerned in our business accounts about our business expenses. So that means that we're gonna add up 20 plus 5 is 25. Probably didn't need a calculator for that one. And then you can probably do this yourself as well, but just for the sake of the making extra work for myself to edit, minus 25 equals 75. So that would be our salary for the month, £75, because we took away our business expenses. And then if we go over onto our business accounts here, we can see that it's just automatically updated it for you. There's a nice complicated formula up at the top. We don't need to worry about it. So say for example, so we don't need to worry about any of that. And then you're going to see at the bottom here, annual income 100. Oh, this is, yeah, because we've only been working January so far. So you've got your closing balance here, which is the months. Then you've got the annual income, you've got 100, annual expenditures, annual net profit. Okay, so that's your £75. And then if we input something, so let's say, let's just copy these ones to make it a little bit easier. So what are we gonna buy? We're gonna buy Spotify subscription. So Spotify, that's gonna be out. It is, let's say it's £30. That is going to be subscriptions, and really make sure that it matches up with what it says on the other side. And then that is going to be business, so subscriptions. So hopefully, there we go. So it's now updated. We can see in our subscriptions that 30 has appeared. So this is how I do it. That is all you gotta do. And then at the end, all you have to do is submit this information to HMRC. So do I need to keep all of my receipts was something I was always curious about. And the answer is yes. I know it's annoying, but you have to if you're expensing it as a business. Now you don't have to keep physical paper copies. The main thing I do, I take a photo on my notes and then I file it in my notes app. The thing I do if I've got a digital receipt, so say I've ordered online, I will get the confirmation email and I've got a separate folder on my emails, all of those. It is faff. And I think you kind of get used to it, but when I started, it felt impossible. Unfortunately, you've just got to do it. If you get audited, then HMRC will ask to see 5 years of taxes. And if you can't prove something and you've declared it, you'll have to pay it back. There's no point in claiming it as an expense if you haven't got the proof to back it up. So you don't technically have to save the receipts for your personal expenses, but anything you are listing as a deduction from your business, or you might deduct from your business and you're not sure, just hold on to the receipt. You can take a photo. You don't need to have the physical paper copy. I feel you when you're like, oh, but I'm so bad at filing. Me too. I think everyone tries to pretend that they're good at it and will just say that they file it weekly. Do it either way, so long as you do it. Similarly to this, do I have to write every single expense down? Yes. Sorry, but yes. If you do this routinely and frequently, it just becomes second nature. It is a faff. It is a part of self-employment. Softwares will make this somewhat easier because they connect to your bank accounts. So you don't have to physically type out where you got it from, the date, the bank, whatever. It will just register it. All you have to do is then categorize it. So that kind of does save a lot of time in that respect, but you do have to keep track of everything you spend. It's the hard truth. Now, when these softwares come out, I would still strongly recommend keeping the Excel. I'll be keeping my Excel just to keep track of my own things. Maybe as we get more familiar with them. Remember, I'm not an accountant here. I'm just a girl trying to learn this as well. I do have the fortune that I actually find it somewhat interesting to learn about. So I do have that edge, but I will keep you updated on when I start using the software of if I move away from Excel. I just like that I know how Excel works. I know how I can keep track of not only my income, but my own personal budgeting there as well. I know, again, it seems overwhelming, unnecessary, like why should I care? Now, the reason you should care, one, you don't want to get into trouble. If you don't do it, or if you do it wrong, you will have to pay the price tag later on, and it might be really big and often riddled with extra fines. So it's better to just learn it now and get it out of the way. But two, once you do learn the system properly, you might not have to pay as much tax as you originally thought. Every industry is different, and this is why it's particularly interesting in the Pilates industry, because we are commuting around so much. We're working studio to studio rather than sitting at home at an office. A lot of people are sitting at home 9 to 5 the whole day, every day, or going into workspaces. There are certain things we can claim, as I aforementioned in the video, which can save you a lot of money on taxes. I'm not against paying tax. I'm a good citizen. I'm up for free education, free healthcare. I want everyone to have a nice life, but I don't want to be paying more than I should be. Who would? Imagine that. Can you imagine if HMRC was like, hey guys, so we've set up this thing this year. If you want to pay extra towards taxes, feel free. We're taking extra donations. If you're donating, you can donate to something else probably. Try not to get too political here. I'm like, we all know my feelings on that. Okay, so now we've gone through all of that. I hope you found it super helpful. I will leave the link to the Excel down below. Make sure that you make a copy. Otherwise, everyone else who decides to use it will be seeing your taxes as well. Maybe you don't mind. I feel that we all have a few embarrassing purchases. I don't want you to know how much I spend on coffee, even though coffee is actually tax deductible on some occasions. So make sure you subscribe to find out how. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I do post occasional little helpful tips, not only around taxes, but around life admin, around Pilates, around teaching, around education, all the stuff that no one else is talking about in the industry. Again, I don't think it's actually because anyone's irresponsible. It's just because no one has a clue. So I'm making it my mission to find it out and just lay it all out here for you. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you are not an instructor yet but are thinking about it, well done for listening to a whole video about taxes. Here is your next step to actually go on the education.